Chuunibyou Love and Other Delusions is my favorite anime of all time, and because I adore this anime so much, I have rewatched it almost a concerning amount of times. It's to the point where I couldn't even begin to keep track of how many times I've watched it at this point. Now, even so, I recently rewatched season 1 of this show for the millionth time, but this time with one of my friends. We're both hardcore Eva fans, which seems irrelevant, but trust me, it isn't. And as we were watching this, I paused the show and turned to my friend and said, I just realized us two Eva fans are sitting here cheering for this girl to indulge in escapism. We both freaked out. In all my times rewatching this show, I haven't realized it. But this show is the most pro-escapism shit of all time. Why is this a big deal, you may ask? Well, Neon Genesis Evangelion is a very confusing show. If you've ever watched it, me saying this is probably just appears as a no-brainer, but there's actually one message in this show which I think it displays clear as day. The idea of being anti-escapism. Shinji, the main character of this show, has a fucking boatload of problems on his shoulders. And I mean that. The entire fate of the world rests upon what decision he makes multiple times over the span of the show. When confronted with the decision of fighting or letting everyone you love die, it seems an obvious choice. You fight, but Shinji doesn't make that choice easily. When confronted with the choice of fighting or running away, Shinji's first instinct is to run. Not until he is basically pushed towards fighting does he fight. Episode 1 has a great example of this. Shinji is being asked to get in this big mech and fight an alien that will destroy everything and then kill everyone. He knows this, but he tells his father, "No, Dad, I don't want to get in that big old robot." He keeps refusing over and over again until they bring out a girl that isn't even in the shape to stand. Either you do it or she does, Shinji. Only then does he choose to fight. Watching this show, you most likely are gonna see Shinji as annoying, a crybaby, because Shinji keeps running and complaining about all his problems. He keeps trying to escape them. But what happens when he does escape his problems? Well, everything goes to shit. If Shinji decides to indulge in his escapist tactics, if he hops aboard that train to run away, nothing will ever be solved. It doesn't get more anti-escapism than this, and ever since watching Eva, I've held the same beliefs that I shouldn't run from my problems. I've had a firm grip of these anti-escapist values, but then you introduce Chuunibyou, and as soon as I see a cute anime girl crying, my whole worldview crumbles, and I scream at my screen, "Let her do what she wants to, it's not hurting anybody." And right there with me was my friend, screaming the same thing. There we were, the biggest Eva fans I know, supporting escapism. Us both, who are very vocal about how against escapism we are also the ones who chose to support it. Why is that? Well, I'm here to figure that out, and I think a good place to start is with the shows themselves. More specifically, how they portray their messages. So I've actually already talked about how Eva does it, so let's just talk about how Chuunibyou does it. Chuunibyou Love and Other Delusions follows our main character Yuta, who has to deal with this girl who seems attached to him like glue. Or like a tumor? Both works, but what makes this girl unique is that she has this thing called Chuunibyou, or third grader syndrome, which I will let the show explain for you. Children are more prone to Chuunibyou around the end of 8th grade. It's an adorable yet dreadful disease resulting from newfound self-awareness mixing with an overly active imagination that results in that peculiar behavior we're all quite terribly familiar with. Like the guy who only read weekly manga mags up until yesterday, then suddenly starts reading the original English versions of books. Or someone who has absolutely no idea what coffee tastes like, but still tries to develop a taste for drinking black coffee. And then there's those that believe that they possess special powers and become obsessed with the occult overnight. So yeah, basically she's delusional. And this Chuunibyou of hers is a form of escapism. You see, she went through something as a kid that was hard to accept. I'm not gonna say it here because spoilers, but just know that it became easier for her to live in these delusions, in this twisted version of reality that she held in her head. And so she did. And what's the hurt in that? There's an arc where she gets forced to abandon these delusions of hers and live in reality. This arc is quite literally grey. The color scheme of this show takes a noticeable drop in saturation to display how this isn't right, and I can only sit there and agree. This whole arc just feels wrong. The scenes in which the characters insist upon the fact that these delusions they're living in aren't real feel really harsh and mean, when they're just doing what they think is best, when they're doing what I should be agreeing with. But I don't. It's not that I think they're approaching it wrong. I think the core idea they're pushing is wrong. But the idea they're pushing is simply anti-escapism. So why am I not agreeing to this? The easy answer is just that the show is using my emotions against me. When watching a show, it is true that you're more likely to agree with the protagonist's view. You're more likely to agree with what the perspective of this show is pushing. But is it really that easy? Can you really put Kanye West in front of a Jonah Hill movie and have him stop his hate brigade against Jews? Oh, hey, look at that. But jokes aside, I don't think that's the case. I think your core principles aren't this easy to just flip. I think for most people, I can't show them a show or a movie that has the opposite value to what they hold and expect them to come out a different person. That's not how humans work. An example of this would be Death Note. A seemingly normal high schooler who is given a book. I know, scary. But this ain't your ordinary book. Matter of fact, it's a notebook. But I needed to call it a book to make that stupid joke in the beginning. Anyway, this book can kill anyone. I'm still gonna call it a book. It can kill anyone whose name you write in it. Now you may be thinking, this example is bad because murder is too extreme. Well, the thing is, we still have the death penalty. There is still a lot of people that believe in the death penalty for criminals, which is basically the ideals of Light. Light isn't a senseless murderer, he actually has beliefs that you can agree with. But if you start watching this show with the idea that murder is wrong, even for criminals, it doesn't matter if Light is the protagonist. You're probably not gonna agree with him. Even if you go in believing in the death penalty, there's a big chance you still do not agree with Light, because his methods might be too extreme for you. My point is, most of the time your values as a person aren't as easily swayed as this. It takes more than a show to even budge your beliefs in most cases. So why? Are my beliefs just that shallow? Are my anti-escapism values so weak they can be crumbled by a fucking anime girl? I don't think that's it either. I might just be coping, but I don't think that's it. I have had multiple arguments with my own friends who I've known for years over this. At every single given opportunity, I argue for why escapism is dangerous. Why escapism is never the way to go. So to say my beliefs are shallow, I just don't think so. So, why? Well, if you watched the Lovedera video, you know I always somehow find a way to connect these shows about fucking cute girls to something way bigger. And it's time to get controversial. Extremism. I think extremism is dumb. No matter if it's political, philosophical, or fucking whatever. Extremes are never going to be correct. Because there will always be some situations or just something in general that goes against what you believe. Something your extremist beliefs can't quite account for. And this is a great example of that. I held the extremist belief that escapism was never right. That no matter the situation, you should never resort to escapism. Because it's bound to cause you harm. Chuunibyou is that thing I was missing. That one instance where my extremist beliefs on anti-escapism being wrong were wrong themselves. Now, does this mean I am suddenly pro-escapism now? No, not at all. I still think escapism is a very dangerous thing that most of the time just serves to make things worse. But there are those Chuunibyou situations in which escapism is helpful, where it doesn't hurt anybody. Rika will surely one day stop resorting to this escapism. When she's ready to face reality as it is, she will. Because there will be no reason not to. Therefore, forcing her out of her escapist ways is the bad move. Now, don't get me wrong, I get where extremist beliefs come from. It's the principle of rounding things off. You look at the top rappers and see that they're talking about murder, money, and how much sex they have, how many drugs they do, and you decide you don't like rap. But you're failing to see that minority, the Kendrick Lamars, the Tyler the Creator, that talk about their feelings, that use rap as if it's poetry. They take this thing that's usually used to spit racial slurs and atrocities and use it for true art. You see 1, 2, 3 power fantasy isekais and decide isekais are horrible, but then you miss out on your jobless reincarnations, your konosubas. When you put things in a box, you miss out on the intricate differences everything has. Every single person and thing has so much nuance that you could never even imagine, and you can't just ignore this nuance just because it's the easy way out. I believe extremist beliefs can never be correct, because every single nuance, every single difference that can change your perspective matters, and they should be accounted for. And extremist beliefs just can't do that.